Hello Reshifters. 3 years ago I did a video on using the Shadows Aov, but I was using Maya and Nuke. Well, this time it's Cinema4D and After Effects. I did prepare something in advance. I lost the scene, so I'm gonna start from scratch. So this is the scene we're gonna use, okay? And I want to show you this because, well, this is the real production if you want, right? So you get things and you see how they work. So this is using physical. If I start rendering this, it won't look as expected, right? If I do an Alt R to render from the viewport using physical, well, this is slow, it takes a while, and it looks a certain way, which by default in Redshift it doesn't. Okay, so this is kind of the look we're aiming for, and as you can see here, this is a bit burned. It's okay, I have no complaint, it's a nice scene. Maybe we can do this a bit faster using Redshift, that's all. Okay, and you're gonna notice a few things. For instance, physical, and we have hair in the scene, doesn't need a hair render effect, right? Hair render, it's off here, there's nothing like that. And that means when we're translating this to Redshift, there's no hair here. Okay, so first I'm gonna switch to Redshift, which will have, since 3044 and S24 will have GI on automatically. This changes things. Okay, and these are not translating at all properly. But if I look at the pillow shader here, what do we have? We have nothing. We have just reflectance, which is kind of trying to emulate, if you want, maybe, I didn't look at this in detail, maybe it tries to emulate some sheen or velveting, right? So this is one thing. The other thing is here where we don't get the proper reflections and refractions. So what to do? Well, simply go create Redshift tools, convert and replace all materials. As easy as this. This will get you probably 90% there. So it will take a while, probably 10, 15, 20 seconds for this, because it has to go through each material here and convert it, and it tries to do the best job possible, but it's not always possible because things are incompatible between C4D materials and Redshift. We can do basic things but not advanced things, okay, like layering and different illumination models. So there you go. Oh, it looks good already. Now the thing is, this pillow being just reflective sheen did not translate properly, and that's absolutely normal, I'd say. All we have to do is pick up some colors. I'm gonna try to pick up some colors here, maybe some, I don't know, something like this, and a weight, and I'm gonna try not to use any sort of, assuming this is the pillows, yeah. Assuming I'm not gonna use this necessarily, I want to give it a sheen, and I'm not gonna use reflections too much. So you can see here, weight is 0. This become absolutely flat if you want, just diffuse. So I'm gonna add some sheen, and you get that, and maybe less sample, less roughness, a bit less, something there. You know, in the end, it doesn't really matter. But you can see here that we're not actually rendering the hair, right? The hair is there in the scene, trust me. I mean, in the furniture, we have a hair object here, right? And the reason it's not rendering, it's because we're missing the hair render effect. As soon as we do that, well, we're gonna have hair here, right? Redshift reinitializes, and we're gonna get nice hair. Let's get this a bit better. And I want to change the hair render. Oh, by the way, this is using kind of like just a simple material. I'm gonna change this to instead of white here, I'm gonna change this to probably, I don't know, something like this. Okay, and then we're using the C4D sky by default here. Physical sky, maybe I'm not a big fan of that. Maybe I want to have something different, I don't know. Let's say I want a Redshift sun and sky rig, and this is completely off because the light is in the opposite direction. So if you're going at this, looking at this guy here, and we're just gonna turn this around. There you go. Okay, probably this is a decent angle. I think that's okay. Now you can look at the sky here. Well, this is I think we're by default we're using Hosek and Wilkie, not Pritham, so it's the new one. You can even use the OSL version. Well, there's an OSL version for a new sky which looks even better. You can use it directly in Redshift, not a problem with the OSL shader. There's these trees, and if you look at the trees, we have that through the opacity color. To be honest, I don't want that. I want to use a sprite because it's way more effective. So I'm gonna pass this through a sprite, and probably they're gonna be gone by now. Let's see. Okay, well, there's nothing in the sprite texture yet, so I'm gonna just go here and copy the string. This, copy, go to sprite, paste, make sure I'm using not the color but the alpha channel. Okay, and that should give me the actual sprite. And I don't want to use emission here. You know, opacity, if I'm looking at opacity is good. Let's refresh this. For some reason the trees were not showing up. Preparing ray tracing, come on. And we're gonna use this, actually it's the same exact texture, so that's okay. See the trees there, and I'm gonna use this for not for emission, for backlighting. Okay, translucency in color, basic properties, pump the translucence a bit, and you can see that in here these are lighter, right? See, dark, lighter. Oh, and of course if you want to make it even more convincing, let's try color correction, and do this just for the actual translucency. Okay, which means let's try a bit more saturation. Oh, maybe it's too much. Okay, and pump up the backlighting. See, well, at this point they're stronger than the sky, and I don't want that, so 1.1 maybe. Okay, so let's start rendering this. I'm not gonna bother too much with the actual pillows. They are what they are. The video is about compositing the shadows, or controlling the shadows at compositing level. Okay, so at this point I'm gonna start the Aov Manager. Okay, and I'm gonna add a few AOVs, and we're starting with background because we don't know what's in here, and then diffuse filter, diffuse lighting, and the shadows AOV, because, well, shadows is a raw AOV and needs to be multiplied by the diffuse filter, and when we're adding this result to diffuse lighting, we're getting the diffuse lighting without shadows. Okay, we also have global illumination in the scene. I'm not sure about the emission, but I'm just gonna throw it in there. We have reflections, we have refractions, we have specular lighting. I doubt we have SSS. I can add it anyway, it doesn't really matter. For sure we don't have caustics. Actually, I don't want to add SSS. I know we don't have SSS, we don't translate any kind of SSS. So at this point, I think we're done. Okay, now I can use two ways of outputting this. I can use multipass and direct. I choose to use direct, and the reason for this is quite simple. I want full control over my name, and on top of that I want, if necessary, to have any sort of metadata. The multipass strips the metadata, so I want to keep that. Okay, so I have to paste this here, and you can see one strange little thing. I'm renaming this, the AOV, as just simply file path and $pass. It will be diffuse lighting in the path where this is saved. But the thing is, right now, this is not saved yet. Okay, so simply enabling direct does not guarantee a render. Actually, it guarantees a render, but not a save. So be careful with this, because if you're rendering for 5 hours and you forgot to set something, you're gonna end up with nothing. Okay, so you can look at these effective paths, and to show you this, you see that the regular image is empty, right? And we have multipass, we don't care about that for a moment. So if you're setting something here, look at the effective path there. Nothing, because this is not a real path. I mean, you can say beauty, right? Let's beauty.exr, and this will be an exr, and so on and so forth. Again, not working. You need a real path, right? So this will be on my desktop. I'm gonna name this beauty, replace it. As soon as I do that, I'm getting the proper path. So I'm gonna end up with beauty here, and specular lighting, reflections, refraction, emission, and so on and so forth. So how about render quality? Well, with S24 and 3044, we have this little thing called basic and advanced, and to be honest, at this point I'm good. I don't have to do anything. For tests I can use low, but I can already render this with medium, which is the default, and if I need to, and I can enable hardware ray tracing, which is the RTX support, and simply I can just hit render. Okay, not much else that I want to do. It just works. Just, yeah, I want to read it, overwrite everything. So this will render. When it renders, you're not gonna see anything in the layer here. Okay, well, we have a hair and hair multiply. Don't know why we have those there. Have no clue what they are. We don't have a hair AOV or anything. So maybe this is something just on the picture viewer side. Anyway, let's look at the image. This is rendering. Oh, and by the way, yeah, there's one thing I want to change. I have to re-render, of course. You see the shadow here? I think it's too strong, and I want it softer. So I have to go to the Redshift Sun, the shadows, and make it a tad softer, and we need a bit more samples, just to be sure we're not using or getting too much noise. And the render again. I don't know what those are, really. Okay, and this is re-rendering. Bear with me. Don't know what these are. It's the first time I'm seeing this, guys, so bear with me. Yeah, we get softer shadows, right? Which makes sense. And this is nicer. Well, I'm not a big fan of the pillows, but you know what? The video is not about making pillows. It's about compositing shadows. So sorry about that. Rendering, blah, blah, 41 seconds, and with the saving 43 seconds. Not bad, I say, okay? Now let's go to After Effects. Okay, this is the former renders that I did, and I lost the project, right? I still have the renders, and this was open before rendering these. So all I have to do is close the project, don't save, and reopen it because I'm using the exact same names. And there you go. Okay, so I'm gonna do a new comp here, and I'm gonna look at the beauty from AOVs. Okay, so what is this? This is actually the pre-comp beauty from AOVs that contains the following. It also contains the beauty EXR just for comparison, right? But it has the following component. You have the emission, GI, reflections, refraction, specular, background, all in. This should be in add mode. I don't see this here because I forgot to enable it. They're all in add, and we have the diffuse, which is again a pre-comp. What's in the diffuse? Well, we have the diffuse lighting and the shadows pre-comp. This is actually the diffuse filter multiplied by the shadows, and this goes into the diffuse. Okay, and I can control the amount of shadows by, if I have 100%, there's no shadows. You can see here, right? Okay, at 0% we have full shadows. But the whole point here is to be able to control all this, right? So I'm gonna go back to the shadows, and I have an adjustment layer. Okay, and in this adjustment layer, I can put, for instance, a tint, right? Which says, okay, if this is black, I'm gonna get no shadows. Let me just make sure that this is not doing anything else. Okay, opacity, and then the diffuse here should be at 100% in this case. So basically I'm trying to remove the shadows, okay, but because I have this tint, right, see, no shadows, and then I'm tinting them with black, which turns them exactly to what it was before, I can make it whatever color I want. Okay, this is ridiculous, them being so red and so on, but you get the point. I mean, I have now full control over my shadows, right? And this is absolutely nice. I mean, it works just fine, no problem whatsoever. And I can't change the softness, okay, because, well, it's impossible. You have to re-render, but everything else works. I mean, yeah, all I have to do, well, there are ways to, if you don't want to use a tint, you want something different, I don't know, let's make this a bit, well, maybe greenish and dark, kind of like so. It makes more sense here, at least, you know. Here it doesn't. I'll have to actually work on the refraction and make this refraction a bit greener, so it kind of reflects in here. Let's try that and have the refractions, and let's try to tint that a bit. Well, that's no good because this is not quite a tint, it's kind of a remapper, so I have to use curves. Let's try curves. Okay, and for this let's try a bit of red. You see there? Okay, do whatever you feel is necessary, right? So I just have to drag it a tad, not much more, and probably the blue, the blue as well, just a tint. Let's see, maybe I don't have enough blue in there. I do, but if I go overboard, it makes this warmer, so I don't want to. I don't want that. I just want to keep it a bit. So let's try again, a bit of curve here. Well, this gets into a bit of green, and to be honest, you can play this indefinitely, and I don't want to spend time on this, right, more than it's necessary. You can see here the result. Actually, it's a bit easier to see it, right? And I think probably that's okay, but you can control everything you need to, you know, and it's just, to be honest, it's just fun. Okay, so this is how you actually work with the shadows AOV in Cinema 4D and After Effects. Hope you enjoyed it. Happy reshooting. Cheers.